So our mission for today and what we'll be discussing a lot of is this idea of fitness for video. Because even though we're a video company, we want everybody to be making video. Not every idea or concept or training belongs as video. So we'll teach you how to recognize that. Ellie will teach you a little bit how to write strong hooks, which is the way to bring your learners or your viewing audience closer to your content, which is critical. And then the third is we're going to be talking about something we call the resizing filter, which is you have this idea, maybe you've broken it into pieces, but now you need to think about how to resize that content for video, because we've all had video where we've been talked at, or we've seen video where it's a series of facts and you don't know how to apply it. That's useless video. We're trying to teach you to create useful video. So how are we going to get there? Well, we'll spend a little bit of time doing a FOCA review just so that everybody's caught up, even though this is the third part in our series. And then we'll talk about what's fit for video, a deep dive into organization. Ellie will take it away with the art of the hook. And then we'll talk about the resizing filter and how to resize your concept. So again, by the end of today, if you are not asking yourself and your coworkers, do you even FOCA? We know that we haven't done our job. So Ellie, can you kick us off before we start?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about what FOCA is a little bit, right? Some of you have been with us this whole time, but this is our third in a series of webinars about this idea. And this was all born out of a question that we were asking ourselves, that you were asking us, that we had not found a great answer to. And those two questions were, how do you know if a video is any good? And how do you know what to do to make it better? This is coming up all the time. We've got people making video. People just weren't sure what's not clicking here. You know when you see a great video, but it's hard to explain how to take what you've got and just get it a little closer to that ideal. And so we came up with our own acronym because we had done a bunch of research. We had watched so many videos and we weren't finding anything that worked quite right. And so what we did was we've built out this kind of framework that you can use to build up your videos to make them better and really assess whether they're hitting the mark. It was foundation, organization, content, and action. And this is basically a way that you can work through your video creation to ensure that it's really going to resonate with your audience. Our last webinar was all about foundation. And what we were talking about here is the idea of audience, who this video is for, what you want them to do, and how will you get them to do it. So this is what we spent a lot of time on 2 weeks ago. And this will set you up for the work that we're going to do today. I'm not saying that you have to do them in a direct order. You can jump around a little bit. What you'll learn today will absolutely be useful to you. But if you understand these three pieces of your video development, who you're talking to, what you want them to do, and how you want them to do it, it makes the organization piece a lot easier because it's going to give you a little bit of focus when we work through these pieces. And so if you're interested in this, if you want to learn more, I encourage you to kind of go check out our other content. Again, we'll drop links to that later, but keep these in mind, this audience outcome format, as we move into this organization piece. And so, Kevin, can you start to tell us a little bit about, how you know that once you understand these pieces, that your content is actually a good fit for video?
Yeah. So again, we know that video is good at capturing attention. When we talk to clients, they often tell us, I want to use video to keep my viewers engaged with my content. And just because, our go-to answer is just because you can create something doesn't mean you should. Not everything or every idea is a good fit for video. So to show you what I mean, here's a haiku. If you're not familiar with a haiku, it's a Japanese structure for poetry, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. So many things are cold. It's quite cold here in Denmark. Refrigerator. That's 5 syllables. So it's a terrible poem. And this is just to illustrate the fact that just because you can make a video with Synthesia and make it easily doesn't mean you should. So let's get to more important material. I'm sure that I can't hear you all in the audience, but I think, I just imagine everybody was roaring and holding their stomachs. And I see that nobody left, so I'm going to keep going. So what is video a great fit for? Video is a great fit for storytelling. If you want to share a case study or you want to take someone through a journey, you can use a video for that. If you want to, let's say, visualize the unseen, you want to be able to capture something at a microscopic or a macroscopic level, something that's not in front of you, or maybe you want to take someone to another destination or show them a particular location. You can do that with video. It's good if you want to show a process. It's good if you want to teach a skill. And the last thing I just added here, which is a little bit different, is it's really a great fit for mobile. This is not a missed opportunity because we do have folks creating mobile video or video for mobile. But when I think about how I consume information or new learning content, sometimes I'll be scrolling on my phone where I watch a lot of content, and I would much prefer to just watch that video and not have to move my finger, or I can just watch it and consume it rather than read through that itself. And so on the flip side, video stops being effective when it's not relevant. It doesn't relate to what people are trying to get done for work. It doesn't relate to the task that they're trying to complete at that moment. Or if it's a product feature, maybe they're trying to learn more about how to use a particular product. It stops being effective when it shows too much. You got to think about, what does a person want to see in the moment of need? So if you think about what we talked about for foundation with audience, outcome, and format, you have to think about what information fits in the size of what that person expects to see. And then the last thing that we have on here is, it stops being effective when it's too long. I think this is something where you're in the, yes, Bob Mosher, Robert, thank you for calling that out. But video stops being effective. I think from a creator's perspective, we want to pack as much information into a video as possible. But if from the viewer's perspective, you want to spend as little time watching that video as possible because it's a very attention heavy product. So let's get ourselves in that mindset. Let's get settled. And let's start off with this big topic that's people are very familiar with, which is, how do you save the whales? Now, just give me 20 seconds. I will draw this back in and tell you why it's important. So how do you save the whales? That's a big topic. What does this mean when you ask that question? Do you want me to donate to an organization? Do you want me to stop seeing whales altogether? Do you want me to jump into the tank at SeaWorld and lead the orca to freedom? Shout out to Free Willy. Well, what these two folks here in this research paper, these guys, Finkler and Leon, they thought about this task of, how do we generate a video that will inspire new behavior and new mindsets? And so they really wanted people to think twice about, when they were thinking about what specifically do they want people to do, they thought about, what is the simplest action that we could ask people to do after watching this video that would have a measurable impact. And so they wanted to get people to think twice when booking a whale watching tour. They surveyed 1,700 respondents before watching the video and after, and respondents said that after watching, they would choose a boat that's geared properly, maintains the proper distance, and understands whale habits. So this is just to get us in the mindset that they were able to take this big topic. They made a 2-minute video, and we can send out the deck so you can watch this video later, but they wanted to make a video that would be able to communicate to people what to do. And so that's the essence of what we talk about when we talk about fitness. We came away from this research article with a mantra, which is, make it brief, make it simple, make it actionable. We're tackling this question in this webinar of, how do you make an idea ready for video? You can't, you don't have the unlimited length of a scrolling page. You just have this, you need an idea that's very simple so that you can communicate it just in the time that you have where they're watching. So we'll be returning to this idea of fitness throughout this webinar. But you're probably asking yourself, how do you do this? How do you make that idea brief, simple, ready for video? Well, we have a framework. This is part of our FOCA framework. But what we found is that with organization, you're tackling 3 key things. You're tackling the hook. You want to take people closer to the problem. You want to make a point. You want to provide just 1 key topic or 3 key topics. And you want to show them evidence to make your point.
Workers wear safety equipment to protect themselves from injury or even death. Depending on the job and the nature of the risks involved, workers must wear different safety equipment. At a minimum, workers at our construction sites must wear hard hats, reflective vests, and safety shoes. A safety helmet is important to protect against falling objects and head injuries in the work area. A reflective vest is a key element of your wardrobe and will ensure that you are seen by everyone on the job site. It's good practice to also wear thick pants, which will protect you and keep you warm on the job. Steel-toed boots are important to protect your feet and prevent injury to your toes or the top of your feet. Wearing the right safety equipment minimizes the risk of injury on the job and is also required by law. Failure to comply can result in fines and site closure. And don't forget, if you need further clarifications, send an email to our compliance team at compliance@acme.com or simply get in touch with your supervisor.
Okay, so first of all, I think something fun to call out there is that is my avatar, was able to just plug that in. That is not me on camera. So just a shameless plug for my avatar and how much fun you can have with it. But getting back to organization, we said we had 3 parts. So in this video, we have the hook, we've got the key topics, and we have the support. The hook here is I want to draw my audience in closer to the problem, and I want to tell them about the risk of injury or death if you don't follow these rules. If you don't have on the proper equipment, you are going to, you could risk injury. My key topic is and I've just chosen one for this video, this minute-long video, which is you wear different gear depending on the work and the nature of the risk involved. And what do I do to support that key point or that key topic? I show you a diagram and pictures of the safety helmet, the vests, the pants, the shoes. So that's just a top-down overview of how you use organization to lay out your information. Now, it's important to get started with this structure by having something very clear at the front, and that is the art of the hook.
Yeah, this is really important, Kevin. We've all written, essays where you have to have that lead off sentence. We've all written hooks before, but how do you really write a good one? And so what makes a good hook? Did you know that we only have 5 seconds to get someone's attention before they scroll or they click away? Really, the number one thing you can do here is engage somebody's emotions right off the bat. It's something that's going to keep them looking at the screen, and it's going to give you the time to start to make those key points and that support. But first, if you nail that first line, that's going to give you the runway to do the rest of the work you need to do. And so the emotions that I often see invoked in a good hook are familiarity. One that is just really common and easy is to introduce yourself, or in our case, have the avatar introduce themselves. It's a way for the viewer to feel familiar and comfortable, and it's great, but it can sometimes be a little flat if you're not necessarily coming from a position of like celebrity or, familiarity already, somebody they know. And so there's some other ones that I really encourage you to try out. You might try being really direct, and I think that this is fantastic. This is meeting the viewer at their need. You can just straight up say to them, I'm going to show you how to do the thing you came here to see, and I'm an expert, so you should trust me. You can be really straightforward and say, I know why you're here. I understand you. Let me solve your problem. And that can be a really fantastic way to kind of make people feel seen and understood right out of the gate. Another thing that I really love to do, and this is when you can get a little more playful with your videos, is to invoke the curiosity gap. Basically, what this means is that you're telling the viewer something or asking the viewer something that makes them stop and go, whoa, what do they mean? Suddenly you've introduced a gap in their knowledge and something that you know, and now you have given yourself the room to answer all the questions they may have and walk through your video with them, which is really, really fun. And then the last one, and this is one that we occasionally invoke here, is a little bit of surprise. Surprise is a great way to kind of get people a little shocked. Again, this can invoke that curiosity gap a little bit, but it's a way for people to be like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. And then they're going to stick around to see what you mean or let you back up your claim. And so by activating emotions, we kind of let people lean forward and feel compelled to learn more. And so Kevin, is there a favorite emotion that you kind of like to invoke in your videos or in your hooks?
Sure. My favorite, I use this, now I'm self-conscious because I've used it even in this webinar today, but it's the curiosity hook, which is, I'll bet you're wondering why, and then insert something, because it's just a great way to start off a video, because either that person is curious about the thing and wants to continue, or they're not. So it's, I'll bet you wonder why blank, or how you do blank.
I think that's a really good one. And I think that I may have actually invoked that one at the top of this slide. I use the curiosity gap a lot. It's a very good one. But let me show you some of my other favorites. This is one of my favorites. This is a statement hook.
Today we're going to talk about caffeine. It's the most widely consumed psychoactive drug in the world, most commonly consumed as coffee.
So I love this one. It's just a statement. He's stating a fact. But the reason it works is that you came here thinking you're going to learn a little bit about your favorite morning beverage, but instead we're talking about psychoactive drugs. That escalated super fast, right? This statement works because he's taking something as simple as a cup of coffee and he's making it scientific and globally important. He's blowing up the scale with this statement. And so using superlatives or bombastic language in a statement is a super great way to really set the hook, because viewers immediately want to know more. They're like, you have to explain that. That's a lot. And so you kind of get people to lean in and wait for your explanation. But let's see some other ways that we could maybe do this. I've got an example for you. This is an example sentence that I've used that is a really simple way to insert into your video. And it's here at company, we are dedicated to helping you exciting outcome. And it works because it introduces you, but it also kind of directly addresses a concern your customer or your viewer might have. And it engages that familiarity and directness. But you got to make sure you go big here. So think, if I were Swiffer, I wouldn't say, for instance, here at Swiffer, we're dedicated to helping you clean your floor. Like, yeah, that is what the product's for, but in reality, we want to be making this bigger. We want to go big with our hooks. And so I might say something like, here at Swiffer, we're dedicated to helping you create a home that you love to be in. We're invoking emotion. We're invoking that sense of home and comfort. We're going big. It isn't about the floor. It's about the whole, not even house, home. And so that's a way you can use a statement hook. Another one that I really enjoy is a statistics hook. And I actually just used one of these on you all, but here, let's see this example too.
According to a survey by the American Psychological Association, 43% of adults claim that stress has caused them to lie awake at night.
I won't lie, she's rather chipper about that one, but that statistic still works really, really nicely. And it's because you feel more trusting of what she's saying because she's relying on a reputable source. Immediately, straight out of the gate, I'm like, oh, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. They've done their research. That's really good. The other thing is that a statistic gives you a solid fact to like latch onto and kind of help you trust that expertise. The other thing is that staggering statistics can really effectively summarize something that's like too big to process, such as, the whole world is dealing with stress and we're all losing sleep over it. This is a big problem, right? And it's an emotional problem, but a statistic allows you to kind of deliver it in an effective and impactful way really quickly. So viewers are surprised and they stick around to find out why that stat could possibly be true, or potentially what you're offering as a solution to that situation. And so let me give you another format that you can kind of use in your own videos about this. This is our stats facts hook. And this one, I'm not doing a whole lot of sentence building here. According to study, surprising fact or stat, insert that there. In this situation, you want to let that stat do the heavy lifting. Make it direct and let it be a little surprising. So say if I were doing like a manager training, a statistic might be a really great way to make this exciting from the get-go. Instead of saying, welcome to module 1 of manager training, I could say something like, according to the employee benefits news study, it's been found that the average cost of losing an employee is a staggering 33% of their annual salary. Immediately, it's not just welcome to the module, I'm happy you're here and part of our company. It's we need you to internalize the information in this video because the cost of turnover in our company is costing us massive amounts of money. And I framed it in a statistical statement that really makes it feel like that's something real and also something that we could potentially chip away at. And this video is going to provide you solutions. So it could be a dry topic. A statistic is a way to make it immediately feel more urgent or more tangible, something that can actually wrap their head around. And so if I give them that statistic, my managers now know their performance is tied to business outcomes, and what they hear about next matters. And so statistics are a great way to liven up something that might otherwise be a little dry. And so I've got one more last one for you. In this one, I've used this in this session. I love a good question hook. Let's see an example of a good question.
How do you keep track of your financial life?
And so it's a really simple question, right? It's really straightforward, but it's a good way to hook a viewer in because it can incite potentially a little anxiety or uncertainty. You're making them aware of the fact that they may not know the answer to this, or you're asking like a big open-ended or existential question that might sow a little doubt. And now you've primed them to receive the answer to this question. And so this is actually an important one because you're going to pique their curiosity, and they're going to naturally want to know the answer and stick around to hear it. And so I'll show you one last format with this one, our question hook. What if everything you knew about a common experience was wrong? This one works really well because, again, it's kind of that existential, open-ended, whoa, what if that's true? You're sowing a little doubt and setting yourself up to kind of fill in that gap of knowledge. But this is the kind of thing that's going to have you looking sideways at your bottle of Fiji water on your counter, right? It's going to have you wondering, like, what don't I know? And what should I know about this thing that I deal with every single day? But the thing I will say about this is if you use a question, have a plan to answer it, have a structure for answering this question. Now you can use basically the rest of your organization process to address this question that you've opened up. But it's a really easy way to kind of get people engaged with your topic by flipping it back to them as a question. And so,
I was gonna say, yeah,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say that if you have something like this, you better deliver. If
Yeah,
you're gonna
right.
give somebody something groundbreaking, you have to deliver on it. Otherwise, people will not watch your videos after you cry wolf the first time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is, but this is why it's great, because this automatically leads you to the rest of the structure we'll talk about today. Now, all of your key points, or your one key point in support, are all going to be supporting this answer, figuring out how to answer this question. And so it's a great format for making video scripts. It makes it really, really easy to build them out. But before we get into all the rest of organizing your content, let's just recap real quick. These are some of those examples, plus a bonus question, question version, which was the Seinfeld question. You'll see it kind of embedded in the middle here is, have you ever noticed that emotional observation, or what's the deal with? It's a way to kind of ask an open-ended question. So there's a bonus on there.
Yeah. So it's my job to bring us back to fitness for video, not fitness, physical fitness, but having an idea be ready for video. So you've brought your viewer to your video. Now it's time to deliver on that idea or that key point that you want to get across. So how do you keep it simple? How do you make your video actionable? Well, we have this idea here at Synthesia. Ellie and I have been batting this back and forth, but what we call the minimum acceptable chunk. The minimum acceptable chunk is what we call the smallest possible chunk of knowledge necessary for the viewer to understand a new topic. When you're taking in new information, you have to figure out how to synthesize it with what you already know. And if the chunk is too big, it's not going to fit into your brain. So we're really mindful about how we break down concepts into chunks or ideas so that we can then make sure that it gets across to the user or to the viewer, excuse me, and make sure that they are able to understand what we're trying to tell them or act upon what we're trying to tell them. And so what we found in working with short form video is that if you're thinking about building a video, your idea should fit into either one key point, this structure here on the left, or three key points, the structure here on the right. And so if we look here on the left first, we have that hook that Ellie was talking about, bringing our viewers closer to the subject matter or the topic. We have that one key point or that assertion we want to make, and we can go deep and provide three supports for that key point we're trying to make. So supports in this case are data, facts, examples, screen recordings. It's all in service of supporting that one key point to really drive it home. Maybe it's for a task or a skill you're trying to teach, but you should just choose one for that short form video. You want to prepare your idea for just one video at a time, and sometimes you might need just one key point. Or if you look on the other side, we have the hook, which is important for bringing folks close to your content. Then maybe you have three key points you want to drive home. You don't just want to say, hey, I have this thing to show you. I want to tell you why it's important. I want to tell you what makes what it is, and then how you act on it or how you do something with it. So in this case, with your short form video, you have your hook, three key points, and then you provide one piece of support per chunk. So if you have three different ideas, you want to give support for each. That's again, that's data, that's facts, that's examples, that's screen recordings. So let's show you what we mean by that with an example. This comes to us from Synthesia. These are just two ways that we educate users about using a template. The video on the left is a screenshot from our Intro to Templates course, and the video on the right is from our knowledge base. So if we look on the left, we chose that one key topic and three supports to drive it home. So in this Discovering Design video, in this lesson, the key topic that we're trying to drive home is that you can use these external resources that we're going to provide you to help inspire your template design. So one support that we have is behance.net, which is for visual design. We have coolers.co, which is for color inspiration. And the third bit of support to really drive this home is Google Fonts for font inspiration. Now, if we look here on the right, we chose 3 different topics to introduce in this knowledge base article because we wanted this person to start to find the answer to what they were trying to do with templates right away. So we taught them how to add a template in Synthesia using screen recordings to support that. We use how to make a template from a video, again, using screen recordings, and then how to share a template, supporting it again with screen recordings. Now, before we jump on to our next example, Ellie, I know that this is something that we bat back and forth a lot when we're talking about what is fit for video, what is fit for just one key topic. Do we want to go deep, or 3 key topics and 1 example per each? Can you kind of tell us how you make that decision as an instructional designer?
I mean, I think it comes down to, what we talked about in foundations a little bit. We're trying to figure out what we're guiding here. What are we trying to make happen? And so you got to be thinking about your viewer through both of these. How deep do we need to get? And I think sometimes when we're making a video, we're thinking, I have this huge topic. I need to get all the information and they need to know everything. And really, I think what it comes down to is you need to think about need to know and nice to know. If somebody needs to know it, it needs to be in that video. But sometimes we incorporate a little bit of nice to know. That's okay. I think when you're getting into more of that nice to know, you might be using more of the 3 key topic where you can dive a little deeper, you're exploring different avenues. Whereas when you are just trying to get to the point, you're trying to be succinct, this 1 key topic with your support can be really straightforward. You can also invert those sometimes, but really I want you to be thinking about what does your viewer need to know in this moment? What is nice to know? And how much of that can you work into your video without overwhelming them? That's really what I'm thinking about here.
So there's a lot of factors. I think we get to this later we get to this next, but there are some factors that you need to consider when thinking about, do I use 1 or do I use 3 key topics? So let's keep going. One example that we also want to show out, this is from our intro to FOCA example. This was the LinkedIn workforce report. It's a monthly workforce report that covers the hiring rates and the movement of people between industries and job titles. And we created this video here on the right, which we'll send with our resources. I think what's important about this when we talk about organization, though, is when we start to look at the structure. And I have a bigger version of this that I'm going to cut away to so you can see how I put together a video. If you look at this here, you can see that I have my hook up here. I have I'm using that getting right to the point, that right to the point hook. You came to learn about key insights, so I'm going to give it to you. Then you can see here in green, I've highlighted each of the 3 key topics that I wanted to pull out. And these were the 3 key bits of data that came out of the report. I don't want to show off everything. I just decided to cover as much breadth as possible and say, I'm going to give you 3 key insights and 1 support for each. So we'll be sending this to you in the resources after this presentation, and you can get a sense of how we broke down the workforce report and what are the key insights there, and how did it translate into something more like an outline that follows that organization format. But for now, let's move on to this idea of resizing for fitness. And Ellie, whether that was intentional or not, you really got into this idea of how do we really make sure that this is going to be useful for viewers. So the number 1 problem that we run into when talking with clients is that your videos have too much and don't go deep enough. And what we mean by that is sometimes the consequence here is that you get an information dump. And I know that I'm just as guilty of this as the next person, but you say, I have all these things I want to tell you about. So first you're going to learn this framework, and then you're going to learn about this story, and then this thing that comes after, and you just keep piling on more and more information. So you're going too wide, but not deep enough. Another big problem is not showing enough examples. You introduce this new concept, and then you don't have enough examples to help a person make sense of this information. Maybe you have not enough stories, not enough data, not enough examples to show off this concept that you're trying to teach. And then finally, you can run into this problem of not enough information to move forward. If we think about this idea about we want our videos to be actionable, we want our viewers to be able to do something after watching our video, we can run the risk of putting too much information in and not enough support for what do I actually do with this. So what does this look like? And what can we do about this? Well, The last step for organization when you're moving through is thinking about what we call the resizing filter. Number one on this resizing filter is you pass that idea and you say, how much time does my viewer have? Do they have time for a 10-minute video or do they have time for a 2-minute video? And we put this one first because that's the easiest indicator of, do I have too much information or not? And a lot of folks are asking us, what is the ideal length for a video? Go back to your viewer and say, what is your ideal length for video? Where are you watching this? And Ellie, I see you nodding your head. Is there anything you wanted to jump in with?
I just think, I think about, how much time people have. People in our webinar have committed an hour to us, but a lot of people, when they're just trying to work in studio, need an answer in 30 seconds. And it's, again, meeting them in that space. And we've developed for the full spectrum of time. And I just think so often people get a little lost in picking in that space. And I really appreciate that we're calling this out.
Yeah. And then also, if you, I have to say, if you can't fit it into your idea into organization, or you can't crunch how much time your viewer has, I hate to say it, but maybe you shouldn't be making a video. Maybe this would be better as an email. And I hate to say that, with a product that we have, but sometimes a video, something is just not fit for video. So if you can't fit it in that time filter, maybe a video isn't the right key. Next is simplicity. Could this idea be simpler? Can we break it down further? I know that we as sometimes experts, I'm going to call us experts in making video because we're in this position, which now I'm regretting saying, but we run the risk as experts of saying, oh, they'll get this, this concept, I explained it correctly. But you have to remember that when somebody's learning something new, they're getting this information for the first time, and they might not have the prior knowledge to synthesize that new information that you're introducing. So you're thinking about, could this be simpler? Could we break it down further? And then third is about supporting the action. Ali and I we're advising clients, if your training videos are not actionable, then what's the point? If you can't see it, did it even happen? So you have to think about, did I give them enough information to act upon this? And the answer to all three of these, and even though it's under 3B, is if you didn't answer any of these, make a smaller chunk. All right, so really quickly, we're on the home stretch here, so please stick with us. We just have 3 examples. So this is the Do You Even FOCA video that we have. Just 3 ways that you could resize this content to make it simpler or to make the chunks smaller. Over here on the left, we have, used to be 3 key topics. So what ranks a 5 on the rubric? How do you use the rubric, the FOCA rubric, to get your score? And then finally, how do you calculate your total score? That's a lot. That probably fits within the span of a 5-minute video, but let's say I only had 1 minute. If I only have 1 minute, I'm going to simplify this down into one topic and say, these are the 4 elements of great video, and I'm going to give you 15 seconds of each. So sometimes you have to resize it smaller just to fit it into the time needed. Second, we have simplicity, the same topics on the left. We're talking about ranking, what ranks a number 5, how to use the rubric, how do you get your FOCA score? Well, if we're going to make this even simpler, we're just going to say this is a FOCA benchmark video, and here are 3 reasons why. We're really simplifying the information that we're trying to get across to our viewer, and really, just, rather than explain everything, nail one thing really, really deeply. And third, to support an action, again, we're resizing from those 3 topics on the left, and moving over to the right, we're saying, we're boiling all this down into just one topic. Again, you can see kind of a trend here of going from 3 key topics to 1 key topic, because in the span of short form video, you really just want to nail something down and provide more examples so that you know without a doubt that your viewer is getting the information that they need to make it actionable. So if we're thinking about supporting an action, maybe all I want to focus on here is grading. How do I use this rubric? So step 1, watch the whole video. Step 2, grade each segment. Step 3, get your total score. And Ellie, I just want to give you one last chance to jump in, because I know this is a big topic for you as far as how do you choose, or what do you use to make your decisions on whether it should be 3 topics or 1 topic?
I think that this is a really, really good question, and it's tricky, but I think a lot of what it goes into is that if I'm doing 1 topic, it's because I am going deep and I am teaching a skill. I'm really trying to dive into covering that holistically. If I'm getting 3 topics into 1 video, I'm trying to go high. I'm trying to give you an overview, some high level, information about this and orient you to something. Sometimes, you kind of have to shoehorn a little bit. Sometimes if I'm not filtering for time, I might have 3 topics and I might go pretty deep on each of them. Then we're getting into longer amounts of time. We have to be mindful of like, what filter are we working with here? But if I'm potentially going towards action, time might get sacrificed, and that's okay. These aren't mutually exclusive, but it's, you kind of have to be weighing these different factors. But generally, I would say 1 topic is for going deep. 3 topics is going to be for something more high level.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's interesting. The filter I always go to first is time, just because if they don't have the time, then then what's the point?
Yeah.
So that's just the resizing filter all in one go. So Ellie, can you take us home?
Yeah, so just to recap what we talked about today, this is all about organization. So again, we haven't even gotten into studio today. We're just talking about preparing your information for video. So it's really stellar when you start to turn it into a script and you start to turn it into content. Then we also talked about what to do with a hook. How can you just get them on the line as soon as you open up your video? How do you start off strong? And then thinking about, once you've got them in your video, how can you make sure what you deliver to them next is suited for what it is they actually need to know, want to know, are curious about, and you're answering their questions. So that's where we went today.
Nice. And I'm just going to bump us over real quick and switch our screen, because of course we have a takeaway for you. We'll send the links to all the resources that we included, all the example videos, but really we just want to share this with you quickly. Last time we left you with a foundation in 3 steps. This is the organization in 3 steps. So you can see the different steps that we follow. Step 1 is to write a hook, and we've given you some sentence starters here, and maybe we'll add the ones from our from today's presentation as well. But these are sentence starters depending on what you want to, how you want to engage your viewers right off the bat. Step 2 is just a physical reminder of, do you need to break down your idea into 1 point or 3 key points? Do you need 1 key point with 3 supports, or do you need 3 key points with 1 support for each? And then finally, step 3 is resize your idea using the resize filter. And again, you're just outlining your idea. You're not writing your script. This is going to ensure that when you get to writing your script, you know exactly what you're doing. So pass your idea through that time filter, that simplicity filter, and support the action filter to make sure that your idea is set for video. Because as we probably, hopefully hammered in home by now, if your idea is not fit for video, just stop and don't make it yet, because you'll get the opportunity to hone that idea and make something that really lands with your audience.
Amazing. And so for today, we just want to ask you to do one thing. We always try to give you an action. I really want you to focus on that hook. Obviously, we've given you a lot here, filtering, thinking about how to organize your content, but really the one thing that you're going to be able to do after this easily is to write a hook. And so think about that. A lot of you already identified one of those sentence starters that might work for you. Go ahead and try and fill in those blanks, write something yourself, and then send it over to us. And I'm actually going to volunteer Kevin's inbox. So go ahead and hit him up with whatever you write. I'm sure he'll share it with me. But we would love to hear it. We really love seeing the work you do. Some of you have been sending us links, have been sending us questions after these webinars, and it's just so much fun to hear it. So